Greetings, this is Jefferson Henry. Stick with us for Transparency, Part 3. Ray's Auto Marine presents Transparency. Greetings, Jefferson Henry here. Welcome back to Transparency. I hope you've seen the first two Transparency screencasts, because after today, if you haven't seen them, you're going to want to go back and take a look. We've seen some reaction, at least we believe it's a reaction from the DNR, from what we've published. Many of you across the country that have viewed this video may be asking, why am I looking at it? Well, this is about government transparency, not just about the DNR, not just about a local issue that's taking place in Ludington, Michigan, on the western coast of Lake Michigan. This is to show that trickle-down government is what's happening to this country. The way that the people are, the way that the cities, the state, the way that they govern, everything's done behind closed doors. You don't know what's going on. Just like they said, you'll have to pass a health care bill to read it. Well, you have to just put your faith in the government, in your state and local communities to pass it, because they're not going to knock on your door. They're not going to ask for your opinion of what's taking place. They're going to break off into little boards and groups and make decisions, and those people are going to be told what they need to do, and it's going to come back and they're going to have a 20 or 30-minute city commission meeting. No documents will be placed with the minutes, and the historical record is lost. Now, we're going to give an example. Right now, we're showing the page of the Waterways Commission. And it states right here at the top that the Michigan State Waterways Commission was established by the Michigan Legislature in 1947. Now, that was brought out in the first two screencasts. But this is now, right now, as we're online. You can see down here in the bottom of the corner that we're online. We're live shot here. The commission is responsible for the acquisition, construction, and maintenance of recreational harbors, channels, docking and launching facilities, and administration of commercial docks in the Straits of Mackinac. In the first two screencasts, we showed that that's not true, but here it is today. Now, we're going to take a look at an email that I received, and anybody that is a subscriber to the DNR newsletters received this. And this has got the information that says the Michigan State Waterways Commission, the same one we just looked at, is going to meet in Manistee, Michigan. Now, just take a look down here, and we'll blow it up and highlight it for you. It says that the Michigan State Waterways Commission is an advisory group created by Public Act 451 of 1994. Now, doesn't this sound familiar to what we just read? To address issues concerning public boating opportunities in the state of Michigan, including acquisition, construction, and maintenance of recreational harbors, channels, docking, so on and so forth. What are you to believe? They're an advisory group on this, and this is where we feel the DNR making a change, sending out an announcement because of what we've published. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're just going to say, well, we decided we'd put it out there. But on the website, we just showed you, it's still publishing. As 1947, it was still having the ability to purchase and to build and construct. Now we're going to move on into the Michigan Harbors Guide. The Waterways program the Waterways Commission, the Michigan State Waterways Commission, the Waterways Commission, Waterways, the fund. Now, sometimes all those words may mean the same thing. They may have the perception to the general public that Waterways means Michigan State Waterways Commission. To those in the DNR, it most likely means the Waterways Fund, in which Mr. Olson did state earlier that even the one development in Ludington was still the fund. So we're just going to take a look here. This is on the DNR website. You can take a look at the address here. We can't provide links through YouTube that you can click on, but you can take a look at that URL and or just Google Michigan Harbors Guide, Department of Natural Resources. It'll come right up for you. So we take a look at the Harbors Guide here, and we see Department of Natural Resources, but we see the Michigan State Waterways Commission insignia, which they were ordered in 1947 to come up with this. So we move on down here, and you can download this Harbors Guide and updates of the different marinas, and you can see here, right here, updated October 9, 2014, so on and so forth. And then you have other parts here if you're ever checking with the DNR site. This is really your chapters where you want to start when you're looking for things. I haven't really found Department of Parks and Recreation division in here. Many pieces of it, but never found one in here. No credit gets given to Ron Olson for all that he does. Page 6 of the Harbor Guide talks about the Harbor Program. Now, this gives us more history. It confirms the history. It confirms what we've said. It confirms what the Attorney General of years past and present have said. You can take a look at this. I don't know if it becomes redundant for you, but it's one way and it's the other way. That seems to be national government to me, from what I hear, from the people that I get feedback from Twitter, from comments that I receive. The state of Michigan, here in the Harbor Program. State of Michigan began its Great Lakes Harbor Program in 1947. Now, we've heard that a couple times now. The commission was granted authority in supporting funds to create a marine highway along the 3,000 miles of Great Lakes shoreline from 1947 to 1964. This commission developed 83 harbors of refuge. Really? That was all done in those years? I don't know. Enabling tens of thousands of boaters to encircle Michigan using safe harbors and overnight hospitality. In 1966, when the new state constitution went into effect, the Waterways Commission became part of the Department of Conservation. Well, we knew that, didn't we? If you saw the other videos, you saw the Attorney General's opinions, 2 of them. Executive orders is how that happened. That's how it got put in the Constitution, by executive orders by Governor Romney. Lieutenant Governor was Milliken, William G. Milliken, who, by the way, is one of the original members of the Waterways Commission. And the person that went on to continue in the Department of Natural Resources under the Water Resources as the director, and then the chief director for the Waterways Commission was Keith Wilson, and he was an original member of the Waterways Commission. and continued on through. Some fascinating information that's going to come through in the minutes that we show down the line of 1965. Why these marinas were built for a sports fishery. The salmon you hear about had a lot to do with this. We're alleging that today. We're going to prove it. Now, you just continue down through here, and it's painful. You come down, and it talks about the shoreline safety here. So the second paragraph under the harbor program. The program's goal is to locate harbors so that no boater will ever be more than 15 shoreline miles from safety. In a few places it has not yet been possible to meet the goal, but the maps on page 20 to 22 show how extensive the network of harbors has become. We have those maps coming right up. It goes on to talk about this. We're going to make these documents available. Like I said, you can download this. We showed you the URL, showed you how to Google it, how to find this, how to read it for yourself. Now, what's important here under funding? You're going to hear some further comments from the meeting that took place in Ludington about this Dingell-Johnson Fund. Now, this is where I learned that an act, the Dingell-Johnson Fund was an act that took place, that one of the ways that money is hidden and the public doesn't know where it goes, it isn't necessarily through a new bill. The Dingell-Johnson bill has been changed numerous times. You go through appellate court cases and you find Dingell-Johnson, you'll find things you're like, well, this isn't what this was meant for. This was meant for a Waterways fund. And there was a disagreement between DNR staff that this federal money says right here, in addition, the federal government supports the harbor program through funds allocated to the Dingell-Johnson Fund, administered by the Fish and Wildlife Service, U.S. Department of Interior, for the development of boating facilities designed to match local contributions. Now, federal money prohibits commercial boats. And that's why it's written in the state law and the Constitution that there's to be no commercial vessels or for hire. Federal law. But yet, it gets voted in. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at the maps. Now, let's just remind that the commission was granted authority supporting funds to create a marine highway. And that marine highway was developed and called the Harbors of Refuge. Well, let's begin with something, if you're on the west side of the state, you're going to be familiar with. You see here the marinas that are part of this highway. They're part of the Highway of Harbors of Refuge. But take a look at the key. It's right down here. Recreational Harbor, Harbor of Refuge. How many are there? 1, 2, 3. Well, you count and you see if you find more. And then the black ones say Michigan State Waterways. The Waterways Commission is responsible for all of these. Let's take a look at the east side of the state. Now here's this highway They tried hard to get the fish. I mean, I know friends that have boated Lake Michigan, circled it, and were just thrilled that they had these harbors of refuge. They went by this booklet. They went by the maps. Knew where they set together their plan of where they were going to stop. Again, you take a look at the key. How many harbors of refuge do we find on this one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why is the coding changed? It says on page 6 that 83 harbors of refuge. Well, let's see if, you count them up. You see if you can get to 83. Here's the Upper Peninsula. Same key. Superhighway. So how's this paid? How is this paid? We know it's paid with federal dollars. We know that we have a Waterways fund. Let's take a look how it's paid. Folks, you pay for it. Now, I hope everybody purchases the passport for the state parks. Our Michigan State Parks needs funding. Support our state parks. 80% of the gas tax. The DNR receives 2% of the state gas tax. 80% of that 2% goes into the Waterways Fund. Now, the heading of this says the Michigan State Waterways Program funding. And it says funding for this publication provided by the Michigan State Waterways Fund. You're looking at the proof. Is this deceiving to you? So with that deceiving evidence, now let's just take a look at the law. Let's just scroll right up here. We'll show you. This is the Michigan legislature. You can look this up. We're not going to go through a bunch of detail. You can look this up. This is the definitions of what the law is. It's how it's defined. And we're just going to scoot right on down here to what a vessel is. And we're going to see right here. And we'll highlight this up. We'll blow it up. Vessels mean all watercraft except the following. Watercraft used for commercial fishing. Well, the DNR uses commercial and charter, uses commercial and charter boat in the same sentence. But they shouldn't. Commercial fishing is limited basically to tribal fishermen with their gill nets. That's commercial fishing. And there was a civil case brought against a individual and a tribal group that was fishing, and they brought their boats in because of the ice during the winter and caused some slight damage to the Ludington Municipal Marina. And it went to court, and it took about a year to figure out how they were going to work out the agreement. I have studied that agreement. So what we have here, watercraft for commercial fishing is not allowed. Even the Boy Scouts, they do have some training in different state harbors, but they're not allowed to dock there. If the watercraft is owned by the state or any political subdivision of the state or the federal government, they're not supposed to be there. Well, in sheriff boats, DNR boats, they're in there in Ludington. I've seen them in there, docked. But let's take a look here at number 5. This is really what addresses charter boats. Watercraft when used in trade. Now, that includes a lot of people that aren't registered charter boat fishermen. If you're exchanging money, well, that's trade. Now, you may have a fishing buddy, and that's all you do. My father and Raymond Karbowski's father, we went out fishing day after day after day. Well, we put in a boat launch. We didn't put him in the marina. Now, I don't know where that crosses the line or not. The same two men. But then pretty soon, if you start putting other people on your boat, are you going to cross the line? But where you cross the line is where it's different people all the time. And when you take all the charter boats and you pull them into a 5-star marina that's been built exclusively for the charter boat fishing, to take on for the salmon sport fishing that were put in Lake Michigan and were known to be that were going in there in 1965. So any watercraft used in trade, including watercraft when used in connection with an activity that constitutes a person's chief business. Now there you can't escape. That's a charter boat captain. His chief business or a means of livelihood. That's your charter boat. We've read these laws. And this gets put in, we take a look here, this gets put in underneath the definitions, and with the Michigan State Waterways Commission, with the Department of Natural Resources, they have the director for the Waterways Commission. You have to go to 324, 501, 502, and 503 to get the definitions for the Natural Resource Commission and for the director of the DNR, to find out where the real laws come from. That this came from, where this set of laws came from. So right here is the law. This is Public Act 451 of 1994. So however they want to slice it, whatever year they want to put on it, the charter boats aren't allowed. So we ask, how do they continually get around it? All right, now very quickly, we're going to look at a couple of documents. This is written to Jim Christensen. There's a marina manager at the City of Ludington, and it's from Jason Fleming, Acting Chief Resource Management Section. He was at the July 13 meeting of 2013 that was mentioned in depth and in detail in the Transparency Part 2. And we showed a letter from the Chief of Parks and Recreation and the Director of the Waterways Commission that he wrote in June of this same year. The date on this letter is April of 2013. So this was before the letter from the Director of the Waterways Commission, Chief of Parks and Recreation, that they needed to get rid of the charter boats out of Ludington. And this is his operations man. In fact, Mr. Olson said that he was the one that was spearheading this. That you'll find that in Part 2 of Transparency. So he states right here in the letter that the departments received information from the City of Ludington about the allowance of seasonal commercial slips at the Ludington Municipal Marina. Now, we just saw that's not allowed. In accordance with several agreements signed between the state and the city for the purpose of constructing the marina facilities, the city is required to seek approval in writing of both the city and the department for allowing commercial activities. Now, that is absolutely true, and we have that. You know, we've had some people say, well, that's a loophole. Well, it has to be in writing by both the city and the department. Then the city and the department cannot rewrite or legislate the law. And that's why when they sit down to write an agreement, they have to make sure that the laws have been changed to do this. There's never been any such agreement. We're going to show that to you. I'm going to right after this document. So let's just get through this. So there's ever been a document signed with both parties agreeing to commercial activities, let alone charter boat activities. Now it says the Department and Waterways Commission, here we go again, approved the use of 12 slips for charter boats for 3 years on February 5th, 1999. The department, which would have to be represented by the Natural Resource Commission or the director of the DNR himself, which never happened, never went before them. So this never happened. The Waterways Commission approved the use of 12 slips for charter boats for 3 years on February 5th, 1999. We're going to show you that document. After which the situation would review the impact on transient boating program. This is not about charter boats. This is about the harbors of refuge, about the availability of people traveling and being able to have the slips that are needed. That's what the harbors of refuge is all about, not to meet a sports fishing need. Now, in part 2, we played the tape and showed the transcript where we said, well, when's the review? How are you going to review this? And they said, we're doing it right now. Right now. And that's highlighted in Transparency Part 2. If you haven't seen that and you want to see the proof, it's there. So here we have this. There's no review. They do it that one day and that day was July 18, 2013. After the letter like this is written and the Olson letter that's in Transparency Part 2 that says that they need to get rid of the charter boats and have them out of there by the end of season 2013. And then a complete reversal. So the transparency here that's lacking is who overrode Mr. Olson. We cannot put this blame on that person. Look what he wrote. Go see Transparency Part 2. Now, presently, this is Jason Fleming. Presently, there's been an inquiry made by a local marina operator on the position on the department on this issue. That's Mr. Karboski. The department has recognized that it failed to act after the 3-year permission and has asked the city to resubmit the request to allow commercial use for the 2014 season and present the request before the commission on Friday, July 24th in Leelanau County area. Before the commission. What commission? Well, we told you earlier in this video. It was a Waterways Commission. Sincerely, Jason Fleming, Acting Chief, Resource Management Section. Now, let's go back in time to this 1999 letter, and let's see just where that came from. So here we have March 1st, 1999, Department of Natural Resources. This is actually a DNR staff member. He attends the Waterways Commission meetings, and when the Waterways Commission gets asked a question that's outside of their scope, which is harbors of refuge, to give advice on, well then normally this gentleman who he represents the state of Michigan with the International Joint Commission. This guy knows what he's doing, okay? But here he's writing a letter to the city manager of Ludington in 1999 that says at the February 5th meeting of the Michigan State Waterways Commission in Detroit, approval was granted to increase the number of seasonal slips at the Ludington Municipal Marina for commercial use to a total of 12 slips. The approval is for 3 years with the review process for consideration of a continuance. Sincerely, William Boyk. Now, are we piling on? Should we be throwing a flag and penalized for having too much evidence? Because it doesn't stop here. There's piles and piles of this. The Michigan State Waterways Commission in Detroit approved and granted to Ludington. They had no authority. They're advisory only. How many times do we have to say it? Jason Fleming cited this in 2013, in April. In June, the chief of the Waterways Commission says, you got to get them out of there. But by July, they're changing their mind, and finally in October, the Waterways Commission passes a resolution. And that's all there is today, is a resolution from the Waterways Commission to allow those charter boats. It's illegal. How else do you want to say it? Well, this concludes part 3. Ladies and gentlemen, this transparency is opaque. You can't see through it. You've got to dig. This is happening all over our country. Why should anybody think that this isn't happening when you don't know? You can't fix your roads, you can't fix your infrastructures. Our sewage infrastructures across this country are falling apart. We need to start paying attention. We need to start getting people that will dig and get this information, and start getting the people in there that'll get the information out. We've asked for tapes of meetings because the historical record of the minutes are terrible. And the cost that was quoted to us just to make CDs, copies of CDs, was over $2,000. We've asked for other ways to be able to do it. We're not even getting an answer. So anyway, this concludes Transparency Part 3. It's probably the longest screencast that we've done. But we've laid some pretty good proof out there, so that you, the public, can understand that you can't have your dollars used to compete against yourself. Now, you may not be a charter boat marina owner, but the DNR is acquiring land, and they're acquiring land where there's other types of development that are taking place, where mires are going up. There's one in particular that I was down at a town hall meeting in South Haven. The DNR acquired it knowing that there would be development there. Well, they're interfering with public purpose. The city of South Haven is taking care of that. Do you see how this follows? Government's coming in. This isn't just subject to Michigan. This isn't just subject to one city. This is subject to the entire United States of America. That's why we're here. That's why we're putting out and we're being transparent. I'm Jefferson Henry. This has been Transparency. Until next time.